On the 21st of July 2022, 50 Beret Vert joined their Royal Marine counterparts from 43 Commando Fleet Protection Group at Speen Bridge, Scotland, to mark the 80th anniversary since the founding of the French Navy's Commando Marine. In 1942, the Commando Training Depot was set up at Achnacarry Castle in the Western Highlands of Scotland. The 6-week training course had to be completed in order to be posted to a commando unit. The site was chosen for this purpose due to its remoteness and severe weather. The first call for volunteers for service of a hazardous nature was in the early months of 1940, with many of the men going into action in Norway almost immediately with little training. On their return, Winston Churchill wanted his own corps of assault troops to start afresh, and the name Commando was agreed. In the autumn of 1940, the Commandos were organised into 5 Special Service battalions under the command of a Special Service Brigade HQ. However, these larger battalions were felt too unwieldy, and they were returned a few months later to their original designations, which at the time were all Army Commandos rather than Royal Marines. It was not until February 1942 the first Royal Marine Commando unit was raised, designated as Royal Marine Commando Royal Marines. Those who did not, for any reason, pass or complete the commando course were allocated to other sections of the Royal Marines, including landing craft duties. Disparagingly described as a civilian in uniform, at the head of the Free French was Philippe Kiefer, a banker of 40 years whose enthusiasm and persistence finally convinced the British to accept French soldiers into the shock troops as the Premier Company Marine Commando. The creation of the battalion was initially planned for March in 41, but did not begin until 42 as a Troop 1 Commando Française, with the intention of raising the unit to a battalion of 400 in readiness for the expected operations in Europe. On July 14, 1942, a national holiday in France, a small company paraded through the streets of London on the occasion of the French National Day.
Free France, now renamed Fighting France, celebrated the National Day at Wellington Barracks in London. General Eisenhower and Admiral Stark represented America. After inspecting the parade, General de Gaulle decorated Heroes of Fighting France. A submarine officer received the highest award, the Cross of Liberation. For the sake of those they left behind at home, the French heroes remain anonymous until the war is over. Spectators included the diplomatic corps. General de Gaulle was every inch the soldier as he took the salute.
15 members of the Compagnie Kiefer, as they became known, took part in the raid on Dieppe, with the British and Canadian commandos wearing caps with red pom-poms of the French Navy rather than helmets. The men also kept France sewn on the uniforms, and in November 1942 they became officially known as the Premier Compagnie de Fusiliers Marine Commando. Leading up to D-Day, from July 42 to February 44, French commandos were involved in 10 raids on the enemy coast with the aim of identifying defences. A few weeks before D-Day, the French commandos' own badge was officially recognised. As training intensified, the commandos were issued with poor quality photographs of their objectives. Because some of the French commandos were from Normandy, they recognised the site, which created concern for the brigade's English staff, causing them to temporarily confine the troops to barracks. In May 1944, the Premier Bataillon Fusiliers Marine Commando was reviewed by Admiral de Gunlew before embarking from the Royal Navy base at HMS Tormentor at Warsash, with the rest of No. 4 Commando also leaving from Southampton docks. In his speech prior to embarkation at the base in Titchfield, Brigadier Lord Lovat made a rousing speech, some of which he made in French. The Free French troops marched out of their transit camp and on to Warsash on the River Hamble to rendezvous with their landing craft. Before they set off, Philippe Kiefer was promoted in command of the 177 men of Le Premier Bataillon de Fusiliers Marine Commando. Today, the embarkation jetty is commemorated with the memorial outside the Rising Sun public house next to the Warsash Sailing Club. The memorial was dedicated to all the troops that left from HMS Tormentor, the Royal Navy shore establishment used for clandestine raids. At 5 p.m. on June the 5th, the French Marine Commandos set out in Landing Craft Infantry LSI 527 for Troop 1 and LSI 528 for Troop 8, when they learned that they were to land near the town of Hermansville-sur-Mer, opposite La Brèche, codenamed Sword Beach. The General Staff were keen to see the Allies as a liberating force rather than an invasion, and as previously agreed, the flotilla of landing craft let the two Free French vessels land first on their home soil at 7:31 a.m, and it was seen as only fitting that they should lead the assault on D-Day with the British soldiers of the 1st Special Service Brigade in close support. They disembarked from landing craft with Cauville-sur-Mer forces in the east. Their objective was to achieve a breach within 500 metres to the west of Riva Bella, supporting the 3rd Infantry Division. The Premier Bataillon de Fusiliers Marine Commando was also given the difficult mission of capturing the large blockhouse built on the former Riva Bella Casino, surrounded by anti-tank ditches and machine gun emplacements. In the first 15 minutes, 4 officers were wounded, including Commander Kiefer, and 30 men were killed or wounded. The Riva Bella Casino fired incessantly, and it was only finally silenced with aid of armoured support. At approximately 12:30 p.m, the survivors were brought together to meet up, and at 1300 hours, Lord Lovett's men joined forces with the paratroopers from the British 6th Airborne Division at Bernaville. These units were to take 2 bridges and the locks to keep the Germans from sending in reinforcements to the west of the Orne, and in the afternoon the commandos crossed the bridge in Bernaville on the so-called Pegasus Bridge to take up positions on the perimeter at around 8 p.m. On the 9th and 10th of June, enemy counterattacks were pushed back, and Kiefer, who was evacuated to England because of his injuries, returned to combat on the 14th of July, when General Montgomery decorated him with the Military Cross. The Premier Bataillon de Fusiliers Marine Commandos Normandy campaign lasted until the 27th of August, when they were finally returned to the UK for rest and replacements.